I'm talking about the Grand Egyptian Museum and the labs inside the museum. As we always say, that this museum is not going to be like any museum worldwide. Talking about, we have many things here, whether we are talking about the artifacts or pieces to be displayed or the educational sector, a lot of things actually. This is not going to be just a museum like any other museum. When we visit the labs as well, we can see a lot of things. We have experts working here in these labs inside the Great Egyptian Museum, and we have several labs. As we mentioned before, it is about, here we have about 17 labs. For example, this time we are in the inorganic lab, and I think this is my first visit to this lab. Inside here we have many different artifacts, but we are talking about, in particular, we are talking about metal, pottery, and also faience. So we are going to bring you more about the pieces inside here and how people are working on these pieces. Definitely this is something great, and we are all waiting to enjoy and to see all these pieces to be displayed in the Grand Egyptian Museum by the end of the year 2020. Let's find out together more about this lab and more about people working inside with these unique pieces.
The Grand Egyptian Museum will allow Egypt to become a major worldwide hub for pharaonic history and a must-visit place for Egyptologists. The site chosen for the gem is only 2 kilometers from the legendary pyramids. With its unique position on the cusp between the past and the present, the Grand Egyptian Museum will just bring you more about ancient artifacts that creates an interactive experience for the visitor, building a bridge between the past and the future.
Doctor, can I ask you, just you can tell me what are you doing exactly?
Okay, this is a chariot of from Tutankhamun collection, and now I'm making a filling for separation parts and as a consolidation process.
So this is a wood chariot, right?
Yes, it's made from wood and preparation layers, it's layer and covered with gold leaf.
Egypt has been known as the most ancient center of civilization, art, and culture. Throughout history, during the Pharaonic, Greco-Roman, Coptic, and Islamic periods, even during times of invasion, art has operated as a common denominator. The constant expression of life through art has remained an inherent trait of Egypt and its inhabitants. Grand Egyptian Museum is conceived to be an exemplary of manifestation of this trait, exhibiting civilization with all its dynamics, the land of Egypt, kingship and state, daily life, religion and knowledge. A dream that came to reality to have such a great museum in Egypt with a great mission, not only to Egypt, but to the entire world.
So, doctor, can I ask you what are you doing exactly and what about this piece?
This is gilded wooden box from Tutankhamun collection. Belong to this umbrella. The king put his foot in it. This box made.
So it is a lunch box for Tutankhamun.
No, it's put here his foot in it. This made from wood, gesso layer, and gilded lid and some decoration boards. It's come from Tahrir Museum. When it come from Tahrir Museum to the wood lab, we make documentation by photography and multispectra and 3D laser scanning and make some analysis. Then put the restoration plan, then start cleaning, some fixing some parts and consolidation, filling.
With the least procedures as much as you can.
Yes.
The translucent stone facade is one of the key elements that gives a strong iconic status to the Grand Egyptian Museum when viewed from a distance. It makes the distinction of what is inside and what is out. Stretching for a length of 64 meters and rising 24 meters with a width of 85 meters at the bottom, in addition to 17 meters at the top. The grand staircase will create one of the principal chronological themes that will define the storyline of the museum for the visitors. From here, one can say that the technique of the display will change the traditional concept of museums in the whole world.
I am conservator in Wood Lab, Hind Bayoumi. I am working in the beads from Tutankhamun collection. In our lab, we had 3 beads from Tutankhamun collection. First one had a lion shape. I am working in it the restoration processes and the finished restoration. And the second beads from Tut taking a hippo shape, also finished restoration. And the second behind me, the third behind me is taking a cow. The god's head with it. This 3 beads take the king from the daily life to the second or the other life to head to him the power. This 3 beads consists of from wood covered with gilded gesso layer, and another materials such as black resin, and inlay in eyes of the 3 beads, and ivory in the tongue of the hippo shape. This 3 beads had some parts had you can see this part is as black, but this part is, as you see, azurite, take the blue lion in the ancient Egypt. This 3 beads in display in Tahrir Museum from 2 years come in our lab. We making first aid in the Tahrir Museum in display in veteran. After that come to in our lab and remove the first aid, and then begin restoration process.
How do you feel about the idea that you are working with your hands in one of the belongings of Tutankhamun? I mean, this this young king who plays a crucial role now in our lives, actually the center of attraction of all people across the globe.
This is a great work to work in Tutankhamun collection. We had a power and a great and very
sometimes you feel proud that you are
yes, proud to work in this works and to achieve this work.
Because when we watch TV, for example, to see Tutankhamun and his belongings, and now you are sitting and you're working with your own hands, so that's, I mean, definitely this is another feeling.
Great progress, and it take us a large time to work in many places.
The main idea here is not only the idea of the project, but who is working in this project. They are all Egyptians. All of them are young and working so hard to prove that the Egyptian youth is capable of performing such a great project, whether in its labs or packing or the archaeologists themselves. There will also be a space for children to learn, share, experience, and create.
Just allow me also to ask you about the gold coffin for King Tut behind us or behind you right now, because this is the first time for this coffin to be moved outside Luxor, from Luxor to the Grand Egyptian Museum. Tell me more about it, and tell me more about why is it covered like this and how was the transportation?
Yes, about the coffins, these coffins have many stories, as you know, through the media, through the Facebook. We get a permission from the permanent committee to move these coffins. We know that the condition of this coffin is not so good. And after we go to the Luxor and go to inside the tomb, we lifted the coffins from, this was inside the stone coffins. It was 3 coffins, 3 now, 2 now in Egyptian Museum, and this is still was still in the tomb. And this is the first time, as you said, the first time to lift it out the tomb. The condition of this coffin was very, very bad conditions. When we lifted the lid and we see the condition, we see many cracks, we see many missing layer, missing part, and deep cracks, external cracks. We found all state of damage in this coffin. So we must deal with it. We make first aid inside the tomb before transportations to make it in safe condition during transportation, because the from Luxor to Cairo is a long time. And also we used anti-vibrations pallet under the cars during transportation. Also we used data logger to know about the temperatures and humidity, and many data logger we used it during transportations. So this is a good decisions taken by permanent committee and taken by the minister, and to move these coffins to display with all collection of King Tut during the opening of Grand Egyptian Museum.
I think Egyptians excelled in this. Everyone here working, they are all Egyptians, right? It was not like this in the past, and they excelled in the whole process, I mean.
Yes, all stuff here, Egyptians, included about 72 objects was joint work between Egypt and Japan. But all work done by Egyptian staff, as you see today, on all labs here.
And the transportation as well.
Transportation, all team from Egyptian side, and all conservator inside the labs from Egyptian team. And you know that we have about 14 labs here, and 7 for scientific and analysis labs, and the other for conservation. According to the materials, we deal with the artifact.
What about, why is it covered like this, or what's going on exactly?
We have 2 types of the coffins of King Tut. One, which display in Egyptian Museum, pure gold, which was inside, which we find the mummy inside it and the mask, and the other one like this shape. This is made from wood and covered by gutsu, and some parts like the face and hands gold.
But definitely, I believe that this is going to be one of the main attractions across the globe, right?
You are right.
So just allow me before we leave, because I know there is some information about 2 boats will be transferred also, or coming here to the Grand Egyptian Museum for King Cheops as well.
Yes, you are right. 2 boats for King Cheops will be displayed in Grand Egyptian Museum. The first boats are already now displayed in the pyramids area in separated museum, and we will move it here. And another one, second boat, this is a joint work between Egypt and Japan. The working started in 2015. We lifted the pieces. Now we succeeded to lift more than 1,060 pieces from the pit. The boat itself was separated and put it inside the pit beside the Great Pyramids, and in 13 layers. So we finished about 12 layers now, and we moved for all pieces which we finished the conservation. We moved it to Grand Egyptian Museum. Now we have about 800 pieces now in GMCC. Will be displayed in separated museum at Grand Egyptian Museum. It will be interesting and fantastic museum. This is a building designed by General Atif Muftah, the supervisor of Grand Egyptian Museum. And also, by the way, about the first boat, this is also will be displayed together in separated building, and this is also his idea also, and it will be give us a good message for all people. That is, we keep our boats from a long time, and I think it will be good for all visitors.
Definitely, and we are all eager to join next year, inshallah, by the end of year 2020, to find out more about the Grand Egyptian Museum opening.
Wait for this moment, and welcome anytime.
The translucent stone facade is one of the key elements that gives a strong iconic status to the Grand Egyptian Museum when viewed from a distance. It makes the distinction of what is inside and what is out. Stretching for a length of 64 meters and rising 24 meters with a width of 85 meters at the bottom, in addition to 17 meters at the top. The grand staircase will create one of the principal chronological themes that will define the storyline of the museum for the visitors. From here, one can say that the technique of the display will change the traditional concept of museums in the whole world.
That was all for our backpack for this week, but still we have more to bring you about Egypt and about the beautiful sites to visit. The Grand Egyptian Museum is going to be one of the must-sight places to visit here in Egypt. But definitely we have many other places, we have many beautiful destinations where you can enjoy your vacation. Next week we will be back to bring you more about Egypt and more about the fascinating sites here. And always remember, Egypt is the cradle of all civilizations. Whatever you are looking for, you will find it in Egypt.